Hi, I'm Trenham and Stefanie Kethers, and I today are going to be talking to you about the future of meetings and how we can do better than a return to normal. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we're meeting today. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. For a bit of background, the Future of Meetings Symposium was held in September 2020. We had a follow-up retrospective planning workshop in March 2021. The symposium explored new ways of working together, meeting, conferencing across a broad range of issues, including technology, accessibility, and sustainability. Outcomes of the symposium were the TFOM report and a nature astronomy comment, but we also had many spin-off engagements, both for the participants and the organisers. The core outcome, however, was the TFOM recommendations, acronym DISERV. And we've included some links here to the report, the article, and the website, which archives all of the TFOM talks that were presented. So as we can see in this nice little infographic here, DISERV stands for Digital First, Accessibility, Inclusivity, Sustainability, Experimentation, the Right Tool or Approach, Value, and Evaluation. So what does this mean, and how can it make meetings better than they were before? So I'm just going to quickly give a bit of an overview about each of these points, and then we'll spend the rest of the talk actually really fleshing them out and giving some ideas about how you can implement them. Digital first means we're going to offer a level playing field for everyone and opportunities for innovative ways to connect and collaborate. Accessibility means everyone can participate easily from wherever they are. Inclusivity means everyone feels welcome and wants to participate. Sustainability, let's make a positive impact on the environment. Experimentation, discover, explore, and try new things. Let's gain knowledge. Right tool and approach, take into account the goals of the interaction to choose the right approach, apply that knowledge. Value, recognize the value that your local team brings and build expertise. And finally, evaluation. We're going to evaluate at every step of the process, making sure that we adjust and adapt where necessary. So digital first doesn't mean that all meetings should be virtual, but what it does mean is that everyone is equal regardless of their physical location through use of a standardized platform for interaction, including Q&A and social. In this way, no one's privileged through being in the room with the speaker.
How can we now support digital first interactions? Some of this requires a bit of a mental shift. It is very easy to focus and prioritize your face-to-face participants and just tack on some remote attendance, but that's the opposite of what we mean by digital first. What we mean by digital first is everybody is equal and everyone's on the same platform. For hybrid events, prioritize virtual participants by making sure that virtual participants can see the room and who is in it, not just the slides or the speaker, but that they have a real awareness of the audience and everyone who's in the room. And make sure that they can hear not just the speaker, but also any contributions from the audience. On the other hand, provide visual clues in the room about the virtual participants so that the participants at the venue are actually aware of who's there and can interact with them. Make sure that the virtual participants are heard and that participants at the venue really can hear them well. Explore ways to connect virtual and on-site participants. For example, you can look at networking sessions. It's very tempting for networking or social sessions to just focus on the face-to-face participants and have a dinner or a night at the pub and just do something somewhat for the virtual participants, but not quite to the same degree. So explore ways how you can actually have joint networking sessions that really bring those two different audiences together. And overall, do not make virtual participants feel like second-class citizens. Make them really a part of the event.
Accessibility. Online events can overcome many of the accessibility barriers that have traditionally prevented disadvantaged audiences from attending in-person events like conferences.
The benefits are that virtual events provide a much better opportunity to attend for a wide range of participants. For example, those with limited funding or limited organizational support, which often applies to students, early career researchers, but also people without institutional affiliations. Participants from the Global South, participants who do not have the time to travel, for example, because they have caring responsibilities, and participants with disability or accessibility needs, for example, vision, hearing, or mobility impairments. How can we support accessibility? There's a wide range of things we can do. One thing is to provide accessibility grants that can help with specific issues. For example, helping someone to pay for a few hours of childcare so that they can attend part or all of an event. to provide someone with better internet access or better AV equipment. Also give consideration to various needs. Consider captioning, for example. Make sure you include the speaker videos to aid lip reading. Make sure you're considering the use of color to support colorblind readers. Be aware of how clothing and jewelry can distract visually or by sometimes creating additional background noises. And provide slides in advance or via download so that people can print and read them at their leisure and do not have to focus on everything during a talk.
Making our meetings inclusive means that they are events where people feel welcome to attend, participate, and to contribute.
And the benefits of having more diverse events is that you're giving a voice to more diverse people and you can learn from them. How can we support inclusivity? Have clear expectations around interactions. Formulate a code of conduct or a code of etiquette. Consider the timing. So for example, working parents' needs, breaks. A break of 10 minutes may well be too short for someone who's in a wheelchair or someone who's homeschooling their kids and needs to check up on them. Also consider time zones. What's midday for you might be midnight somewhere else, and people might not be willing to have a lunch break at that time. Be aware of cultural and linguistic diversity too. Avoid jargon and in-jokes and unnecessarily convoluted language so that people for whom the conference language is not their first language can actually follow along better. Also, be aware of neurodiversity. For example, don't exert any pressure around webcams on or off.
Sustainability. The climate crisis is having an impact on many parts of the Earth system. As researchers, academics, and generally a pretty privileged part of the global society, we're in a strong position to do something about reducing emissions and bringing about a sustainable but highly connected future.
Benefits are that we lead by example in supporting the Paris Agreement targets. If we minimize air travel and minimize unnecessary conference route, for example, plastics and single-use or throwaway items, if we don't adapt, there won't be a future for our students and early career researchers to build networks in. And minimizing emissions associated with avoidable work travel will be a key part of the changes needed to actually have a future. How can we support sustainability? Budget for CO2 emissions, not just dollars, and normalize the discussion of environment impacts of your work travel and other conference-related activities.
Experimentation. Technology is changing quickly, and in the world of online interactions, new tools are constantly emerging. Some key players invariably emerge, but there might be other options that are better suited to your purposes. Exploring the available tools when you're planning can help you be aware of what capabilities are available that you might like to take advantage of.
Benefits are that you might find really novel ways of making your meetings work, and in particular, that you might be finding options that online events offer your audience that actually go well beyond what's possible in person and may be much more productive and more enjoyable. How can we support experimentation? So for one thing, organizing committees should be involved in this experimentation as they know the needs of their audience best. You should plan this as part of organizing committee activities. Find out what tools are available of the type of event you're envisaging and road test a few within the organizing committee. Also think outside the box in terms of what is important to your audience. For example, systems like Zoom or Teams or WebEx all support breakout rooms and whiteboards, but Gather and Glue support more physical distancing that's more akin to in-person breakouts and might feel much more normal and natural. Also ask yourself, were you doing it right in person anyway? What options does online offer you that in person does not?
So having experimented with a range of tools and techniques and consider what sort of interactions we want to have in our event, we're now going to be in a strong position to choose the right tool for the event. Planning how the event will run and what needs to be synchronous or asynchronous enables construction of an agenda that matches the attendee needs with the required event outcomes.
The benefits are that we are achieving the purpose of our event and also that we reduce technological distractions and barriers to entry. How can we support finding and using the right tool or approach? Consider a few things. What is the purpose of the specific session and event? What are the outcomes you want to achieve? What are the audience's constraints and expectations and needs, and how can you meet them? Explore tools and systems, but also consider the processes, techniques, and facilitation styles that would suit your event and the envisaged outcomes. Be aware that being able to use the right tool may depend on institutional infrastructures and policies, so that is something to investigate relatively early on in the process.
Value. It's important to achieve the best value for your conference, meeting, or workshop. At this stage, there are a few people with genuine expertise in online meetings, although noting that we are at a conference which is run by a facilitation company. And you and your team already have ample experience to draw on for what makes for good and less good workshops, as well as sufficient expertise to implement these suggestions yourself. It's important to recognise the skills of your local team and the value that they can bring with their personal buy-in to making the meeting a success.
Benefits include cost savings, because you'll only be engaging third parties where you really need them. And it also includes upskilling the current workforce and also emerging workforce, like, for example, student helpers. How can we support recognizing and building local values? First of all, be very sure when you're building a community, you and your team are the core of this community. And that means you know the needs and skills and expertise of the people you're trying to connect with better than the service provider does. Consider joining a community of practice to exchange ideas, information, and experiences with others. And make sure that you do build local capacity, knowledge, and expertise by upskilling your co-workers and any helpers.
Finally, evaluation. Reflection is a necessary part of growth. By reflecting on each stage of the process, what do we want? What's working or not working? What worked well or didn't work well? Were our objectives achieved? We can then be agile in our planning and make adaptations as required to maximise the effectiveness of the meeting and future meetings. This was always true and isn't restricted to the new ways of meeting, but it's a good time to talk about it.
Benefits of ongoing evaluation include, first of all, we understand what worked and what didn't work in specific circumstances, which means we can actually learn from things and improve. How can we support ongoing evaluation? For starters, you may need streamlined ethics approvals for pre and post-event surveys, so that's something to factor in quite early in the process. Metrics for success of an event should be defined in the planning phase, but when you do so, consider what the different stakeholder perspectives are on what success of the event actually means. For example, participants, organizers, sponsors, and others might have completely different ideas about what a successful event means to them. Define what you want to evaluate and why before designing any survey, and determine what you need to ask for this particular purpose. A golden rule is don't ask questions just because you can, but really have a purpose to each of your questions.
So, do you want to continue the conversation? Do you want to share your thoughts with us? Do you want to talk about your online meeting experiences, both good and bad? What are the pros and cons of returning to normal? Let's talk about networking and building a sense of community in an online event. And do you want to try out a different platform and maybe see some demos of a few others? Come to our BOF on Friday.
We'll meet in GatherTown to discuss hopefully all of the above, demo some platform options, welcome you to the TFOM community, maybe even play some games. Please feel welcome to join us on Friday afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us at our talk.
Thanks, and see you on Friday.